Hey guys, my name is Nicolette Mashile, also known as the Financial Bunny. Welcome to the Financial Bunny TV. Today we're going to be answering a question, and the question is, what happens if you die before your first installment on your insurance policy goes off? Will the insurer pay out? So let's say, for instance, you have met with the financial planner, they've done the needs analysis, and they've put a financial plan in front of you. And part of your financial plan is some form of, let's say, short-term or long-term insurance policy. Let's rather use long-term because I think that one is the easiest one that many of us have. So let's say you've taken up a life insurance policy with an insurer, you've signed the papers and the papers have been submitted, and now you have a premium date, so a debit order date. And let's say the debit order date is the 15th of June. But now, as you are waiting for the 15th of June to happen and your installment to go off on the 13th of June, you pass away. Will the insurer actually pay? Or let's say, for instance, the 15th of June does come and the policy actually goes off and your family decides that they want to claim on the 17th of June. So the premium has gone off as per the 15th agreement, but you died on the 13th of June, and on the 17th of June, your family comes and says, we want to actually claim from the insurance because our loved one has now passed away. So the insured event has now actually happened. What happens? Will the insurer actually pay? What does the policy wording say, right? And what does the law actually say? Before I get into this video, please remember none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you are, however, looking for financial advice, please speak to somebody who is certified and registered with the FSCA. So I've been doing my financial planning postgraduate diploma, and one of the areas in which we are studying is, of course, insurance. And what does the Insurance Act actually say? Long-Term Insurance Act, what does it say, right? And one of the things that it says is that a policy can only come into effect when it becomes active. So you have signed for the actual insurance policy, you have actually activated it by paying that first premium, especially the first premium. It is important that that first premium actually goes off. But most importantly, what you need to understand is, when does coverage begin? And this is usually what people don't go and read. And let's be fair, and this is now to the financial services world, your insurance policies, your schedules, whatever you call them, they are too long. And they are in the most weirdest English. Like, I know English, right? I know when I tick on that list where they ask you your proficiency of English, I pick native or I pick bilingual because I'm like, listen, I know how to speak English. But when it comes to financial contracts like insurance policies, guys, the language that is used in there is absolutely confusing. And I remember actually doing a video with a gentleman who owns an asset management company. And he said the more confusing language they use, the more they're trying to make something that is simple more complex. Then you need to actually investigate more. The first question you need to ask is, what if? So the question you need to ask when you're not understanding when your coverage starts in your policy is, ask the what if questions to your financial planner. What if I die before the payment goes off? They need to give you an answer. What if the payment doesn't go off on the day? Maybe let's say there's insufficient funds in my account. What is the grace period that I have? What if I just don't pay the insurance policy? Like the other day, I actually found myself in a situation where one of my policies didn't go off, right? Because on the day, I'm self-employed, please, man. You know, our invoices don't get paid on normal days, you know. Sometimes clients are just like, oh, sorry, the invoice is going to be late. We're going to pay it 2 days late. And I'm like, yeah, but what about my debit orders though? Because the bank doesn't care about that. So one of my insurance policies didn't go off. But then I received a letter, I think 3 days afterwards, to say, well, look, we're going to give you a grace period of 14 days so that you can settle this amount. So you need to ask those questions, the what if questions, so that you understand the situation, that if this insurable event does actually happen, you do get a loss. Let's say it's short-term insurance. So maybe your car gets bumped. Maybe your phone drops and the screen cracks. Maybe you leave your phone in the bathroom, Young ladies, I know when we are out there clubbing and, we are club hopping, sometimes the phone gets left on that cistern thing there in the bathroom and it's really not your fault. And it happens so quickly. Like literally you leave your phone there, you go out back to your table. When you get to your table, you realize, oh, I left my phone. You go back to the bathroom and the phone is gone. That's like the crime in South Africa and how quick it happens. The phone is literally gone, right? Anyway, I digress. So you need to ask, what will then happen? Will the insurance company actually pay out? Now, while there is obviously this standard within the industry, there are exceptions and there are certain companies on certain insurance policies who will say, we will give you full or partial coverage once you sign the documents and you sign the agreement, right? So there are certain companies that have, and I guess it's usually to try and get, market share, to make their policies more attractive, is that they will say to you, they will give you some sort of coverage while they know for a fact that your debit order will go off on the 15th. Or they'll say, we'll give you partial coverage as soon as you actually sign. And there have been instances where insurance companies have paid, for instance, where somebody dies before the actual activation of the policy. But it is important to understand that that's normally the standard within industry, that an insurance policy only comes to effect, especially the first installment. You need to pay that first installment for your coverage to be activated. So why am I speaking about this? Because it usually happens with a lot of people when they get disgruntled. I am a prime example of that. The other day, I called my insurance company and I said, for my car, and I said, guys, somebody backed into my car and I don't know what has happened. Then they say to me, oh, you need to go and fill out a case number or at least get an affidavit, which is the right thing to do. But human emotion, I'm now getting annoyed. And I'm like, guys, somebody backed into my car with their little, what's that thing that's at the back, the tow bar. They backed into my car. They've literally damaged my grille and my bumper, and I need this thing replaced. I cannot tell you when it happened because I'm only noticing it now. So I don't know when it happened. I don't know where it happened. So I don't even know who I'm supposed to blame for this thing. So the response I got from them, the immediate response I got from them rather, was just not satisfying to me. And at that moment I thought, yeah, okay, I've been wanting a reason to leave these guys because let's be fair, their insurance is actually expensive. I've been wanting. And then the other day I was in Limpopo and I was doing the premiers event, and as I'm sitting in there, I just keep hearing these outsurance adverts, and I was like, this is divine intervention. It has to be, God is like, Nicolette, I've been telling you to change this insurance policy. Here's a new insurer and they're available for guys. They were pumping those ads. There's one channel on TV, I think it's SABC News, where literally I think every third advert is an outsurance, and I thought, no, it has to be divine intervention. I need to call outsurance. And then they were talking about that 500 rand sign-on bonus if they can't beat the current policy premium, and I was like, the way I'm paying, they definitely can't beat it. I'm gonna get 500 even if I don't go with them, right? Anything for an extra 500 so I can put into my 100-day savings challenge. But also I was listening to these testimonials from these clients, and they were talking about how they've been saved money, and I was like, oh, by the way, this is not an outsurance paid video. This is literally me telling you how this whole thing happened. So at that moment I thought, let me send an email and cancel my insurance policies, right? But the problem is, what happens in an instance where you cancel your insurance policy? Maybe they'll cover you up until the next month or the month ends. But then if you don't activate a new policy and you are in that no man's land period, that no man's land where you've canceled an insurance policy, the end of the month has come, the coverage ends, but you haven't taken up a new policy. So you've got maybe a week or two where the new policy hasn't kicked in yet, or you haven't actually signed one. What happens in that space? Obviously, if you haven't signed a new policy, hauna insurance. But let's say you have signed one, but they say the debit order only goes off at the end of the month. What then? Do you have coverage? It is important, one, to understand the wording of your insurance policy schedule. please, if you do not understand, ask your financial planner to explain it to you. Go through a list of what ifs to make sure that you know what the answer is if a certain scenario is to take place. The second one is understand when the policy gets activated and you have coverage and what level of coverage is it, right? Because as I said, some of the insurance policies will say you've got partial or full coverage. You need to understand if they're saying partial, what does that actually entail? Does it mean that if you, let's say, are in a car accident and the accident is not your fault, they'll pay, but if the accident is your fault, the insurance policy won't pay. So you need to understand what partial coverage actually means and what does it actually look like. The third thing is understand the clauses that are in there, right? Understand, for instance, I know of somebody who had a life insurance policy, and the clause I think that was in there was a suicide clause to say for the first 6 months they do not pay for death by suicide. So you need to know these things, because at the end of the day, the insurance industry also tries to work with its consumers, right? But I must end with the good news, right? And I think the good news is understanding what insurance actually is. Insurance is you go to an insurance company or an insurer and you say to them, hey guys, I have an insurable potential event that could happen. It's either death, it's either disability or loss of income. From a long-term perspective, trade disease, all of those. And from a short-term perspective is, I don't want to lose my household contents. I don't want to damage my car and not know how to pay for it. A cell phone, a purse, the short-term insurance is when you are actually covering things, right? Assets that are not necessarily alive. So you're saying, I might have an insurable event. The insurance company says, yes, and we fully agree with you, and we intend to cover you when that event happens. However, we don't think it's going to happen today. And you're like, okay, for in case it happens, I want to have an insurance. So you've got an umbrella for in case it rains. So that on the day it does rain, your umbrella is open and you are covered. That's what insurance is, right? And it does not necessarily matter that you only paid one premium on your life insurance. If you paid one premium on your life insurance and the next day after the premium has been paid, you unfortunately die, the insurer is going to pay. They're not going to sit there and say, but this one is only one premium. They will pay, provided, of course, that you've made the right disclosures and you're an honest, and obviously what the insurable event that they've insured you for is what happens, right? They will always pay out. So it's important to understand how insurance works, the wording in the insurance, and the type of coverage and when that coverage gets activated on your insurance policy. Now, I need to close with this. Remember, none of my videos constitute as financial advice. It is purely for educational purposes only. Most important thing is you need to consult with your financial planner to understand some of your financial services and products that you have. I will leave it here and see you guys on the next one. Mwah.